Hey, this is David the RV Shepherd. Today we're going to talk about 10 surprising but common RV slide out issues. If you are looking at an RV and that RV has at least one slide out, here's some things that you need to check while you're doing your due diligence to figure out if this is the RV for you. This is not an all-inclusive list. This is just what we've seen recently over the last half year or so in the early part of 2024. And I've labeled them top 10. So I want to see if you agree with the ranking. If you don't, I'd love to hear your comments. Also, if you don't mind, I'd love to get your feedback on format. So this format is a little bit different than the last one I did, which was 10 surprising but common RV sidewall issues. And we talked about all different kinds of sidewall issues that we see in RV inspections. Today's going to be about slide outs, but the format and the way I'm videoing it is a little bit different. So I'd love to get your feedback. I know the other one was choppy. The other one was crazy choppy. I don't know what was going on then, but mostly just like I had this overlay, I had a little circle with my face and things. And so in this video, I'm just going to go straight with video and see how that works out for you. Let's go to number 10. This is a little wiring harness on some of the newer RVs. They'll put like an LED light strip along the bottom of the slide out, which is super cool and it looks really nice. I think sometimes they'll change colors, but this one, that little ball of stuff is actually the sealant inside that little, it's supposed to be inside that little hole. And this is number 10 because it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, I would want to push it back up in there and get it sealed up pretty well, but it's not that big of a deal because it is in the under part of the RV. The chances of water getting in there and wicking up into that is very, very small. But I do think, not that RVs are airtight by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also another place for bugs to come in. And who wants bugs in their RV? Not me. Number 9. This is a slide out topper. And that's one of those things that, like most slide outs, or pretty much all slide outs, don't require a slide out topper. They're a nice addition to a slide out. They help with cooling, watershed, and also just debris. But that should be taught. As you can tell, the awning topper or the slide out topper is just laying on top of the slide out. It should be taught. It should be creating some kind of like ramp for water and limbs and leaves and stuff to flow off. Instead, it's just flopping there. And so the spring on that roller that's supposed to roll it up and keep it tight has failed. Number 8. We're going to talk about this later as we get into the kind of more serious issues, but this is very similar to a slide out alignment issue. I guess you technically probably could call it a slide out alignment issue. This particular RV, as the slide out comes in and when it begins to press up against the wall to stop, the front piece of trim actually is flaring out like this. So it's almost like the slide out's being pulled maybe like too far into the wall, and then it's making this trim piece. It's a T-molding that goes all the way around, flare out and stick out. And so when you're driving down the road, this flared out piece is going to be flared out in the direction that wind's going to be hitting it. So it's going to drive more water, road debris, whatever, into that space. And so that's something that should be flattened out, maybe just to get the slide out and not to come in quite so far. Like basically it's probably over tugging on it. Number 7. This is very, very common, and it's a combination of these two things, but it has to do with sweep seals. Sweep seals or blade seals or wiper seals or whatever you want to call them are on all the way around a slide out. They're on the front, they're on the back, they're on the top, they're on the bottom. And these sweep seals are there to keep water out of the RV. Now, this sweep seal you can see is ripped. And the bigger problem is that it's folding in. Every time you deploy your slide outs, you need to go outside and check to make sure that the sweep seals are deployed. If you don't have awning toppers, this is the kind of painful part. You need to get yourself a ladder or get up on the roof and look down and make sure the top ones are deployed. Really, the top ones should be deployed all the time, even if you have a topper cover, because the purpose of those sweep seals is to keep water out from the RV. This is what the top looks like, and what you'll see is that it'll just be rolled in. So when the slide comes out, that thing is supposed to flip out and just lay there. And then when it slides back in, it'll roll in and when it comes back out, it's supposed to come out again. Sometimes, again, we're going to talk about this in a minute, this can happen as a result of a bad slide out alignment. The other thing is just making sure you have a sweep seal. So this is a picture, it's zoomed in quite a bit, but this is on the left, there is the part of the sweep seal that attaches to the RV, but it's actually missing the sweep or the flap or the blade or whatever you want to call it. It's missing that whole thing. Number 6, this is a Schwintek electric slide out system that is missing a screw. So if you've seen these tracks run along the side and they're mounted to the side of the RV, there's another one called, there's Schwintek makes two. There's the Schwintek inside in wall slide out like this, and there's another one that's called a slim rack. Now the slim rack has a gear rack that goes down, but it's offset from the sidewall of the RV just a little bit. This Schwintek one like this is actually bolted to the side of the slide out. And you can see right here, there's a bolt missing, but guess what? There's actually 2 more bolts missing. So in this whole thing that's attached to the slide out that's helping it move in and out, there's a total of 3, 2 towards the coach side and 1 further on the outside, bolts that are missing, screws that need to be put back in, or actually, I don't think they were ever put in. It's kind of hard to see. If I go back, you can see sidewall and sealant in these holes. So I don't think a screw was ever put in there from the factory. Number 5 is the seals that have to do with the slide out when it is closed. So up at the top here, you can see this is a bulb seal. The bulb seal, basically like a circle, is designed to be squished when the slide out shuts. It's just flapping out there, hanging, out in the wind. Now, here's that Schwintek again. See all those screws in there? That's the way it should look. On the opposite side, there's the bulb seal from this is the T-molding that I mentioned earlier. That bulb seal is just laying there. So for some reason, the bulb seal on the outside and the bulb seal on the inside have both just fallen off. There's another example. This is a different RV, but just an example of how these sometimes can come even from the factory, not mounted 100% the way they should be. Number 4, now we're getting serious. This is a slide out rack system on a unit that's not crazy old, but I think most of us can look at this and see like, wow, that's like a lot of rust. And you're right, that is a lot of rust. This needs to be wire brushed and it needs to be lubricated. You need to lubricate your slide out, especially like this. If you have a rack and gear system, you need to lubricate it. Like it is a rack and gear system. There's a motor that turns and grabs each one of those and pulls it in or pushes it out. But those need to stay lubricated, 1, just to keep them working well, and 2, to keep them from rusting like this. Number 3, this is something on the bottom of a slide out. So you should check the bottom of your slide outs pretty frequently, especially if you hear when you're deploying it or retrieving it and you hear, all I can call it is like a low rumble, humming, maybe even scraping noise. If it sounds like it's dragging, then it probably is. Hey, let me jump in real quick and offer you a free gift, a free RV checklist that you can pick up at noregretrv.com. That's noregretrv.com. Go there, select the lists you want. We'll be adding more to them. Come back often. If you've already got a list and you lost it, you can go back and ask for it again. No Regret RV to pick up your free RV checklist to help you out in your RV adventure. All right, let's get back to the video. This particular RV, you can see where the bottom of the slide out is aluminum. It's a painted aluminum, but the paint has begun to be scratched away by all the rubbing and wearing. And sometimes this is caused by rollers. Typically, slide outs have a roller that they roll on, and either the roller has seized or something got trapped under it that's preventing the roller from turning. Or, if it's seized, maybe it's because it hasn't been lubricated, or there's some kind of slide out misalignment problem that is making 2 fixed objects, the bottom of the slide and let's say part of the cutout framing, actually rub up against each other. Like maybe the slide out needs to be lifted up a bit so that there's room for it to move. Sometimes that's adjusting rollers. Sometimes that's adjusting part of the drive system. It just kind of depends. But the scraping like this is a big deal, and it's never going to get better without some kind of attention. the scraping's just going to get worse and worse and worse until it scrapes a hole all the way through the bottom of your floor. You don't want that. And this is something easy to check. The slide out's out. You just stick your head down there and look. Also, listen while the slide out's coming in and out. Listen for anything that sounds like rubbing noise. This is what it looks like on the inside to have some rubbing. The flooring may be different. This is a wood-looking laminate, and it might have been a porcelain or tile. But either way, you can see in that block area that there's some tracks where the roller has rolled in and out. But the reason the tracks are there pretty bad is because the roller has probably seized, and instead of rolling, it's actually just dragging in and out. So it can happen on the inside, or it can happen on the outside, or both in some cases. Number 2, this is the part about slide out alignments I want to talk about. So in this picture is not the world's smallest slide out. It's actually 2 pictures, the right rectangle and the left rectangle. The right rectangle is the forward sweep seal of a slide out, and the left rectangle is the aft sweep seal of the same slide out. So we're looking at the forward and the aft part of this slide out looking straight down. And tell me, can you see what I'm seeing here? Like, what is different about these two? These are not evenly spaced. The one on the left, you can see is kind of wide. As a matter of fact, as you get towards the bottom of the picture, I'm actually standing on the roof taking these pictures looking down towards the ground. As you get further down on the picture, which is up on the slide out, the sweep seal is barely even touching the side as opposed to laying how it should. On the right part, there's barely enough room for the sweep seal to deploy at all. It's almost pinched. And this is really going to be a little bit difficult to see in this picture. It looks like it's actually kind of a little cattywampus, meaning at the top of the photograph, you can see that the sweep seal is laying up against it, right? When you get to the top of the slide out, which is at the bottom of the photo, it's barely touching, meaning the top is further away from the edge than the bottom. Okay. Now, over on the front, the top is closer to the edge than the bottom. So what it looks like needs to be to happen is that the front edge, I hope you're following all my mathematics here. Let's say this is the front edge right here. The front edge just needs to be lifted a little bit, like literally just a little bit, maybe a quarter inch, a half inch at the most, maybe. And that will realign those squares. Because basically right now what you've got is the thing is shifted. I'm going to exaggerate here. The thing is shifted. So this is what you've got. You've got a rectangle that the top is far away, the bottom is close, but on this side, the top is close and the bottom is far away. And so if we adjust it by lifting up on this side, you can even it out. And so that's a slide alignment issue. And we see these in lots of different ways, but here's the one thing you really need to take away from this is that when you look at a slide out, it should be pretty close, not exact, but pretty close to even on the front and rear sides and on the top and bottom sides. You should have about the same amount of clearance because what you have for a slide out is you have a rectangle cut in the sidewall of your RV, right? You got this whole big sidewall. They cut holes in it for windows and they cut a giant hole for the slide out. And then this rectangle goes into that rectangular hole. And so theoretically speaking, the clearance on both sides should be about the same. The clearance on the top, the clearance on the bottom should be about the same to place this rectangle squarely and evenly inside the big rectangle of the sidewall. Maybe someday I'll get somebody to do an animation. If you do any animations, let me know. I'd love to make a video just about sidewall alignments. But that's one thing to look at because they can start to wear, in this case, they'll start to wear that sweep seal on the forward end, which is the right part. That will wear this sweep seal out sooner. Or on the left side, the part of the sweep seal that's barely touching is going to allow water to get into the RV, and then you're going to end up with some kind of water damage issue. If you have any questions, please ask below. I'd love to clarify if this wasn't clear enough. Number 1, the worst thing we've seen. And this is going to come down to our old enemy, water intrusion. And that is on a trim piece right here, having some kind of significant gap in the sealant, and I would call this pretty significant. This particular slide out has a TPO membrane that is wrapped over the edges, and then there's this trim piece, that black part that is basically holding that down. Then there's typically a bead of liquid sealant on top of that, probably not silicone, probably a Dicor type product, but it has begun to crack, or maybe the rooftop material, I don't remember on this one, has started to rip, but it looks more like just the sealant is cracking. And again, the problem with this is that water will get in and then it will just sit inside the front sidewall of this RV until it begins to deteriorate, or it'll go all the way down to the floor, and the floor of the slide out will start to rot out. That's our top 10 surprising but common slide out issues that we've seen over the last 6 months in 2024. If you've got something that we didn't mention, I would love to hear about it. Comment down below to tell us what it is that you saw, or if you've seen any of these issues, if you have questions about how to address them. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more educational information like this to help you buy an RV without having any regret. I'm David. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Of like a bicycle chain. You know, it's got sprockets. It's got those bumps like on a bicycle chain, but they're in a row. Topping. If even if you have a topper cover